Do you dream of fairies and princesses? Then you've come to the right place. Welcome to Disney Coast to Coast.
Hey folks, and welcome to Disney Coast to Coast, the ultimate unofficial Disney fan podcast. I'm Jeff DePaoli, and today on the show, my pal Derek from the Mad Chatters podcast joins me to continue our Easter tradition of commenting on a throwback TV special of the Walt Disney World Happy Easter Parade. This holiday parade was aired on television from 1985 through 1999, and it was certainly a big part of my holiday tradition, right along with dyeing Easter eggs and hunting for candy. On today's episode, we'll be taking a look at the 1992 Walt Disney World Happy Easter Parade, where they were in the middle of the 20th anniversary of Walt Disney World, celebrating the recent opening of EuroDisney, giving us a sneak peek at the original Fantasmic, and so much more. Lucky for all of us, most of these Easter Parade TV specials can be found on YouTube, so simply click on the show notes and this episode's description to watch after you hear our conversation. It's all coming your way right after this. Who's Its and What's Its continues to add new, magically inspired merchandise to their shop, and recently they released their Tiana's Palace tote bags featuring a beautiful graphic of the restaurant we all know and love from The Princess and the Frog, along with the phrase "A New Orleans Dream Since 2009," referencing the movie's release date. Yep, Tiana's been around for that long. And here's some great news. You can order the tote bag today and save 15% simply by using code DCTC at checkout. Better yet, use code DCTC to save 15% on anything and everything you order at whositswhatsits.com. Simply click on the link in this episode's description to check out all of the great merch, and don't forget to use code DCTC.
It's time to turn back the clock, because nostalgia is king.
Hello, Derek, and welcome back to Disney Coast to Coast. It's been a while, but always a pleasure to have you here.
Yes, always a pleasure to be here. It's good to see you.
It's nice to see you, and we are continuing, I guess we can call it a tradition at this point, because last year around Easter, I introduced you to, not only you, but apparently a lot of people, because I got a lot of messages that people had never heard of the Walt Disney World Happy Easter Parade that was like a televised special for 15 years or so. And you were, on the show to talk about it, but it was your first time ever hearing about it. So I was like, I gotta bring you back. We gotta do this again, because I don't know about you, but I have so much fun talking about these.
Yeah, it was really fun to watch. And after today, literally every Easter parade I've ever seen, I will have discussed on this show.
Well, I gotta tell you, I've been going through all of them, because there is a very nice person who has been uploading, they uploaded every single year from 1985 to 1999 you can find on YouTube, and I'll include a link in the show notes to those, but I've been going through all of them now. So I'm even seeing the later years I didn't watch so much, and frankly, I don't enjoy as much. So today we are talking about 1992's Walt Disney World Happy Easter Parade. I did want to pick a year further away from what we did last year, which was 1990, but after watching a bunch of them, I was like, 92 was an epic year for that parade with some awesome announcements, coming attractions sort of stuff.
Yeah, you kind of forget how big of a year 92 was for the Walt Disney Company. And so I just trusted your judgment. I watched the 92, and you're right. Full of some gems.
Yeah, absolutely. So, of course, this starts with, Mickey and his friends in front of the castle with a giant Easter egg. Who pops out but Roger Rabbit? We got to remember that, of course, Who Framed Roger Rabbit was just 4 years before this, still epically huge, and kind of everywhere in the parks around that time, it seemed like.
And how long did that last? Because in my mind, that was a very short period of time.
I would say a lot of my childhood. I would say at least through the mid-90s, at least.
But that, to me, is still a pretty short period of time, considering he was the biggest box office hit of that year.
Yeah, so the reason that it started, from what I understand, you'd started seeing less and less of that was because of legal issues between Disney and Spielberg. So they wanted to make the sequel movie because it was one of the biggest hits of all time. And it's one of those movies that everybody always says, oh, it would never happen today, because they had characters from Warner Brothers and Disney and a whole bunch of other studios. And I always just keep saying, you say it'll never happen again, but pretty soon Disney will own everything. So, like, it very well could happen again. Or at the very least, they could do something with what they own at this point, I feel like. Like, The Simpsons in a Roger Rabbit world could be a thing, like, if they wanted. But in any case, I know Michael Eisner, when it came to Disney MGM Studios opening, he really wanted Roger Rabbit to be the icon of that park, much more so than Mickey Mouse. And they really pushed for that for a long time. And then eventually it just became more of a legal nightmare to just kind of get rid of most of him. Of course, we'll still see him pop up every once in a while. But yes, 1992, he was still huge.
Certainly. You see him here at the beginning, and then, of course, he has his own section later on.
Yeah, and he's a rabbit, so it makes sense for Easter, right? Of course.
Fair.
I gotta say, right at the beginning of this, we get such a fun opening montage of just, like, flying over all the different parks with all of these, what are now retro videos of the attractions that are there, especially Epcot. We saw some stuff that was like, I think World of Motion was kind of featured in there.
Yes, and they showed the universe of energy, but the dinosaur they showed was one that they cut out once it became Ellen's Energy Adventure. So even that was like, whoa, blast from the past.
Yeah, they do. Oh, God, those opening montages are so wonderful. And, at that point, they only had the 3 parks. So it was Magic Kingdom, Epcot, and Disney MGM Studios that they were highlighting. But yeah, I've always loved them. It's such a fun way to start the special. This was a really well-produced year because having seen as many years as I have at this point of this parade, some of them are not great. This was a great year.
Oh, good. Well,
Yeah.
I started at the top then.
Of course, we have coming back to host this year. Now, remind me, who are the hosts on the 91? I think it was Joan Lunden and Alan Thicke, right? In the big seats?
That's correct. And Regis Philbin was out on Main Street USA.
Okay. Now in 1992, we got Joan Lunden and the late Regis Philbin in the big seats. And on the street, the man on the street replacing Regis is Robbie Benson, who, this is 1992. Of course, Beauty and the Beast is like the biggest thing in the world for the Walt Disney Company. And he is the voice of the Beast. And I don't know about, well, it wouldn't be for you because you didn't see it when it originally aired, but this was the first time I saw this guy who voiced the Beast. And I just remember being like, wait a sec, this guy who has a pretty feminine voice, I would say. Like, he does not have this manly Beast voice. So I was like, this guy's the voice of the Beast? I couldn't believe it when I first discovered this.
I was kind of surprised that they used him because up to this point, Beauty and the Beast was his only Disney credit, and that had been like 5 months before.
Okay, you want to be even more shocked? The 1986 parade, I believe it was 86, so that was either 86 or 87, he was one of the main co-hosts. So
Whoa.
I don't know this guy's work well enough. He must have been famous for something else. But number one, I will say, not a great host. If you go back and watch like that 86 or 87 parade, it was this one year where instead of it being like the Walt Disney World Happy Easter Parade, they teamed up with CBS and they would cut between, New York City, CBS Easter Parade, and the Walt Disney World Happy Easter Parade. And he was like at the Walt Disney World portion of it. And it was awkward, like really awkward.
I just thought it was a really odd choice. He did fine on Main Street USA, but to play the devil's advocate, they didn't really give him a lot to do out there anyway, so can't really mess that up or make it excellent.
But he had plenty of opportunity to show his baby pictures.
Oh my gosh, Jeff, did you catch what his baby's name is?
No, what's his baby's name?
Zephyr.
Oh, Zephyr? I actually kind of like that. I think that's
I like
kinda
it too, but literally have never heard that as a person's name.
No, but it makes me think of the Golden Zephyr in Disney California Adventure.
Totally. Yep, I totally went there too. Okay, so this was going to be my trivia question, but I found a different one, so I'm just going to pose it to you now. Even though Robbie Benson's only Disney credit at the time was Beauty and the Beast, he screen tested for a very iconic 1970s film character.
For a Disney film, a live action? Or
a film that was not Disney at the time.
Oh.
But now is.
1970s. Oh, I don't know. Who would it be?
Luke Skywalker.
Oh, interesting.
And I couldn't see it.
I could see that. Yeah, I just stole your phrase. I could see that.
Don't dare.
I could totally see that. Yeah, he's he's one of those people, I don't think he's like a known name, but he's obviously done some big credits. And yes, he was an interesting choice for this Man on the Street segment, but like you said, it wasn't huge. But speaking of, Man on the Street, Main Street USA, can we just take a moment? I know that they don't do these big grandiose Easter parades anymore at Walt Disney World, but how beautifully decorated is Main Street USA during these specials with the balloons and the Happy Easter banners? I love this, and I wish this was still a thing.
It's really special, and as the parade started, I thought, they're kicking it off with the Main Street USA segment, but then I realized, no, Main Street USA totally feels like the Easter section of the park. So anything you're going to do that's Easter themed is already going to feel like it's Main Street USA themed. So it just makes sense to me.
Yeah, the whole put on your Sunday clothes, your Easter wear sort of thing. It fits in beautifully with the whole 1920s Main Street USA. It's kind of a happy accident that they have when it comes to an Easter parade at a Disney park.
Yeah, you're right. But the decorations I did not love was where Joan and Regis were sitting over in the rose garden. All the bouquets of flowers. It looked like a 90s funeral parlor.
I was going to say, it's very 90s. Yes, that's very floral. It's very lattice and stuff. It's yeah. Where were they sitting? Because I was actually trying to figure that out. I'm like, where exactly are they sitting? Because they don't seem, they can hear the parade, but they don't seem to be that close. And they're obviously watching a lot of this on monitors.
So I think this area is now gone, but it used to be when you were heading towards Tomorrowland on that bridge to your left, there was what was called the Rose Garden. You could sort of walk around some hedges and things. I think that's where they were.
Okay. Very cool. We got Goofy in the Sky watching this from a really cool castle on a cloud hot air balloon. Where is this thing? That's what I want to know.
I thought the same thing. I paused on it. I'm like, for a second I thought it wasn't real, but then I'm looking at it. It is Cinderella Castle as a hot air balloon, and it was incredible.
Yeah, and he acts as the reporter in the sky, and they cut to him a few times throughout the parade, and you get some cool aerial shots of the parks. But yeah, it's this beautiful, just hot air balloon, and yeah, it's real. This isn't 2000s, let's CG that in. That was a real hot air balloon that is that in archives? I need to know.
Takes up a whole warehouse in archives because that thing was massive.
Yeah, and then of course we cut back to Robbie Benson with he just had a baby and he was really proud of it, and at least 3 times throughout this special, he's like, let me show you my kid, and he would whip out these pictures and it was so awkward to me. I don't know how you felt.
It was definitely awkward, and I don't know if ABC was like, oh, of course, that would be so fun, because he just had this kid. Zephyr was born in 1992, which is this year. So it was brand new, but I don't know if they were like, the dude keeps taking out his pictures, someone has to stop him.
I have a feeling it was probably the latter, because he did not return any future years. Now, the parade starts with the classic Easter stuff. We got Easter bunnies, we got giant Easter baskets, giant Easter eggs, and this really cool version of Zippity Doo-Dah, which had such a fun energy to it, much more so than some of the past years. Other years it was like hippity hoppity, Easter's on its way, and just very classic, but this had a fun energy to it. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, they probably wouldn't do this today, right? Zippity Doo-Dah is a no-no song at this point, right?
Yeah, I still don't know if Disney's made a call on that, but I'm dying to find out if we're ever going to hear it again in any form.
Yeah, to me, it's one of those things. I get why people consider it problematic, but to me, I have zero association between that song and that movie, Song of the South. It's just classic Disney. It's fireworks. It's this parade, so I find it interesting. But yeah, I know they removed it from a music loop or something at Magic Kingdom, right?
Oh, I hadn't heard that. See, that's the kind of stuff I'm dying to see what they do with. I hadn't even heard that.
I don't know the specifics, but I had heard that they removed it from some music catalog somewhere. So I think eventually, especially once Splash Mountain's gone, I think, yeah.
Well, speaking of Splash Mountain, Splash Mountain had just opened a few years before at Disneyland, and I believed it opened 2 months after this at Walt Disney World.
Yeah, they definitely they name drop Splash Mountain here, and they're like brand new at Magic Kingdom, and then Joan Lundon's like, well, I did it at Disneyland, and so yeah, they had that to promote for sure. Of course, Roger Rabbit comes back. He has his own float singing to "Let's All Do the Hop," which is perfect for him. And then Mr. and Mrs. Easter Bunny, we see him rolling down the street with Joan Lundon's kids in the parade. How much would you kill to be one of those people's kids? We're just like, yeah, throw them in the parade. I would kill.
So many kids in this parade. I think that's what happened the last time we watched the parade, but every time one popped up on screen, I'm like, oh, there's another one. Did they get out of school for this?
It was Easter Sunday.
No, I know, but for all the rehearsals and stuff.
I don't think they rehearsed very much. There was a huge cast. And the cool thing about this is it's not like a typical day at the park parade where it's all Disney cast member performers. They bring in a lot of local groups. In fact, this next section, the Music Man section, I call it, we got 76 trombones being played by a band. And then Pick a Little, Talk a Little, if you're familiar with the Music Man, being sung by a huge group of singers along with the Dapper Dans. And it's a lot of like local music groups and stuff, which I think is a really kind of cool thing to, I mean, what a dream for so many people to perform at a Disney park, and they do it quite a bit.
I agree. It kind of reminds me now of what they do with the Candlelight Processional in Epcot, where every night the entire stage is full of like high schools from around Florida who get to come and sing, and it's like that. And these groups in the parade are not like groups of like a dozen. This is a huge, massive shoulder-to-shoulder crowd of people who get to be in the parade.
Yeah, this Easter parade was quite a production, which is why I'm always shocked when people are unfamiliar with it. And on top of that, like I said, this was a really well-produced year. So it was so much fun to rewatch.
I think my favorite part of this long section was the baseball players from what looked like Casey at the bat. It looked like they had come straight out of Casey's Corner, and they were acting out like a full inning of a baseball game on the street. I thought that was so fun. And Pluto was there with his baseball cap.
Yeah, no, that is a fun section. They did that for many, many years. Having watched a ton of these parades back to back, sort of, I was like, okay, I kind of get why they ended it. Like, it got super repetitive. It is the same parade section, which is why when like there's a little change, like a zippity-doo-dah opening or something, I get excited because I'm like, oh, something different, like, or oh, different character on that float, because it's very repetitive. Which is why I think the best things of these, when you watch them, are the kind of the promotions for the new stuff in the parks, the cutaways from the actual parade.
Yeah. Speaking of promotions, you kind of glossed over who the two sponsors were of this parade.
Was it Kissimmee St. Cloud?
Yeah, one was the glow-in-the-dark Reach toothbrush. But Kissimmee St. Cloud, my favorite, is that their slogan is the vacation destination in the middle of Central Florida's best attractions. Location is our biggest attraction. So in other words, there's nothing here for you to see, but we are close to places where there are things for you to see.
Listen, I have a whole new outlook on Kissimmee. First of all, these parades from my childhood are why I know the name Kissimmee. I remember these commercials like they were yesterday. But on top of that, having just spent some time in Kissimmee with friends who live in that area, but not in Kissimmee, I was like, oh, okay, like Kissimmee's a thing. Yeah. And people have thoughts on Kissimmee. If you live in Orlando, I'll just leave that there. So, you know, to Aaron and Ruben, that's for you. Yes. So one thing we got to talk about here is some quotes from Regis Philbin throughout this special, because there are some things in the whole Sunday close segments. They have like these nannies pushing babies and strollers down the street in their Sunday best and all that stuff. And all of a sudden, we just get not bad looking nannies either, huh? I'm like, oh, no. I'm like, oh, Reg.
Oh, no, I didn't even catch that because I was so caught off guard by the fact that we have a section of a parade where nannies are pushing babies in strollers.
Yeah, it's supposed to be Sunday morning, going to church, I guess, and people dressed in their Sunday best. Yeah, so we got that, and then soon after that, in fact, during that baseball segment you were talking about with Pluto, we have just going to Joan Lunden. Were you ever a cheerleader, Joan? And she's like, no. I wasn't. I don't know.
No. This reminds me of the movie Airplane, where the kid sits up in the cockpit with the pilots, and the pilot's like, have you ever seen a grown man naked? Just like the most random, inappropriate questions.
I gotta tell you, Joan Lunden, who did this parade for many, many, many years, she had a few different guys next to her through the years. There was Ben Vereen, there was Alan Thicke, there was Regis Philbin, and they were all a bit like wacko, off the cuff, going off the prompter sort of stuff. And she always just like went with it, and you could tell, like, she was like, okay, let me get this back on track. But she was such a pro. Yeah. And Regis was off track a lot this year.
Regis was Regis. He's just, he's a goober, and I think that's his brand.
I'm out of control. That's my Regis.
That's great.
There you go. So now Robbie Benson was asking people on the street where their family's from. And of course, we cut to, well, I've got to show you pictures of my family. I will not live down these baby pictures. It was so funny. But let's cut to Disney MGM Studios, a cutaway, which at this point was a park that was only 3 years old. So still a brand new spanking park. And we get some shots of Catastrophe Canyon. Oh, rest in peace. I wish Catastrophe Canyon was just its own little separate thing somewhere, or repurposed for Galaxy's Edge. How cool would it have been to like had that rock work in Galaxy's Edge? That would have been great.
Yeah, it was still impressive all the way up to the end of its run.
Yeah, it's a fun thing. And then, so they're showing kind of clips of old school Disney MGM Studios. We got the Catastrophe Canyon. We got the flying on a bumblebee scene being recreated from Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
No.
We got, clips of the Honey, I Shrunk the Kids movie set adventure. Classic things. All of these things gone.
No.
Do not exist.
Yeah, we saw the Ninja Turtles briefly, also gone.
They were in the parade. Yeah, they come up later. So sad. But we cut to Richard Mulligan from the TV show Empty Nest. And this is the section. They did this for a lot of years where they kind of like highlighted Residential Street gone. Oh, which was so great. But the Empty Nest house was there next to the Golden Girls house. And the year prior, they actually had Betty White do this section and talk about how these homes are just facades. And this year, it was Richard Mulligan from Empty Nest. I'll let you choose which one's your favorite. So there's that.
I mean, considering one of them I had never heard of before I watched the parade.
Really? You're not familiar? I only knew him from like Empty Nest commercials, which I believe is a spinoff of Golden Girls. I'm pretty sure
you're right.
Their houses were literally next to each other on Residential Street, and I think that they were neighbors on the show.
Did they give Betty White more screen time? Because after this segment,
Yes.
all I could think was that even necessary? He was barely on.
So Betty White was in character. This would have been the 91 parade, I believe. Betty White was in character, and tourists go knock on the door, and they're like, oh my gosh, it's you. And she's like, oh my gosh, did I win the Publishers Clearinghouse? And they're like, no, it's you. You're part of the Disney MGM Studios backlot tour. And she's like, what? And then the tourists show her that her home is a facade. And she's like, oh, you just can't get good help these days. And, she does this whole thing in character as Rose. And it's definitely better than the Empty Nest one. But,
Yeah, better than I'm Richard Mulligan, star of Empty Nest.
Exactly. Now back to the parade. We go to The Little Mermaid, which, of course, was a big hit at this point still. It was only a few years prior. And, when it comes to Little Mermaid, giant flounder is a terrifying sight.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I totally agree with you. They have not figured out what to do. I mean, they have now, but back in the 90s, they had not figured out what to do with those types of characters.
But let's face it, we still got this with Mrs. Potts, Chip, Lumiere, Cogsworth. We still got that going on over at Disney's Hollywood Studios during normal times. But yeah, this was like a giant flounder walking down the street on his fins. So like massively huge. But there is a point where Joan Lunden says, I don't see him yet, but I know little flounder is out there. And then Regis, with his great moments, goes, he's always around, but he's such a tiny guy that we have trouble seeing him. But on second thought, who wants to see him when you can look at that? And it's a shot of Ariel in her clamshell bra. Were you not listening? Because you seem to be shocked. I'm not making this up.
I was so focused on the floats that I didn't even realize that someone needed to splash some cold water onto Regis Philbin's face.
Oh, man. It was, There are some lines that I'm like, this would not cut it today. This would not be okay.
I caught all of the puns for sure, all the egg puns about like Roger Rabbit being a basket case, etc. But I did not catch the off-the-cuff comments.
I definitely suggest anybody watching this pay attention to the words coming out of Regis Philbin's mouth.
Oh gosh, I hope Joan got some sort of bonus for having to put up with all that.
So she seems to genuinely like him, but I think he made her job a little bit tough. But they do have a conversation. Of course, we're seeing the Little Mermaid section of the parade. They talk about Voyage of the Little Mermaid, this brand new show over at Disney Mgm Studios, and how great it is. And there's lasers that make you feel underwater, and you even get a little wet, they say. And the beginnings of Voyage of the Little Mermaid, which I honestly love still.
It's a fun show. That was back when it hadn't run long enough for the seats to smell like they've been getting wet for the last 30 years. So I bet it was, prime time for Voyage of the Little Mermaid.
I think it's a fun show. I hope it comes back. In fact, I think one of the times when I was with you at Walt Disney World, I remember seeing it with you and you saying something like, I think that's the first time I've seen the entire show.
Yeah, the first time I saw it was with you. That is correct.
How that was like 3 years ago or something. How did you get through life that long without seeing it?
And the reason I said the whole show is the very first trip I went on, we did go, but I fell asleep because it was near the end of the trip. You sit in those seats, you know the story, and I just started dozing off.
I love it. The giant Ursula is reason enough to go and see Voyage of the Little Mermaid. Yeah, you missed her the first time. See, that's why you didn't know it was worth repeating, because you didn't get her.
True.
Unfortunately. Then we have a Winnie the Pooh segment. It's so funny to me. 1992, the big hits were Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast. Everything else was like old catalog stuff. So we're going way back with, Winnie the Pooh was 1977, I think was his movie. So it's interesting what they choose to focus on or feature.
Yeah, but my word, Winnie the Pooh had a renaissance in the 90s. He was everywhere.
Yeah, there was a thing. I don't know what the time period was or the reasoning. They did like a whole Winnie the Pooh for President campaign. Didn't they do that or something? Or am I making that up?
They did. I feel like that was the 70s, though. I think that was during Nixon's time. But in the 90s, he had that show, Dumbo's Circuit. No, that's Dumbo. No.
Pooh's Corner.
Welcome to Pooh Corner.
Yeah.
And then I just remember, like, when I was a kid, every stuffed animal place you went to was like Mickey, Minnie, Pooh.
I think, now that you say that, that does ring a bell. He was pretty big. I was never a huge Pooh guy. I don't dislike him by any means. In fact, I enjoy his ride. I just never got onto the hype for Winnie the Pooh. I don't know why.
I don't know. Well, he did get he replaced Mr. Toad's Wild Ride later that decade, so.
It's true. That's a big deal at Magic Kingdom. People are still upset about that.
Listen, you should see my very angry letters that I have stowed away, ready to send. I'm just kidding.
Just imagine if Twitter had existed back when they were closing Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. There would have been hell to pay.
I don't want to be part of that world. Little Mermaid.
After that, speaking of older movies being focused on, we got The Jungle Book. And here, Regis actually had a great line. He goes, I love the monkeys. Maybe they'll sing Last Train to Clarksville.
Oh, good night. He aged himself. I love this float because there was a live brass band on the float.
This is one of my favorite things when the parades do this, and they tend to be either for a TV special like this or early in the run, and then they're like the first things to get cut when budget cuts happen. But yes, there is a full brass band on the float playing along with the music. And I remember this for Mickey's Soundsational. I don't know how well you remember that parade, but I believe it was the last float was Mary Poppins. And at one point, like, they had a full brass band chimney sweeps on that float playing along, and it was epically awesome. And it was one of the first things cut.
I saw Soundsational several times. I never saw that, but that's really funny that you say that, because the very next float I put in my notes that this reminds me of Soundsational because it is Mary Poppins and Bert, and out on the street you get all the chimney sweeps just turned up to 11. You know, like they're doing all the crazy dance moves they can think of. So much fun.
Can we talk about like how huge this cast was? That like the amount of people they had in this parade, my guess is somebody in a boardroom was like, this is going to be the biggest parade we've ever done. Get as many people in it as you possibly can. We want to break a record here. Because, like, to the point that it almost felt crowded on the street. Like, oh, there are too many performers, which is crazy.
Yeah, I think maybe if I'd been there, I would have felt that way. But I think for the TV show, it just provided so much energy. It felt like the whole park had come alive. I kind of loved it.
Yeah. So we got that. We cut away again for spring break with Mickey and his pals going around the resort because, of course, when Mickey and his friends go on vacation, where do they go? To Walt Disney World. Why would they go there if they live there? They don't live there. They live at Disneyland and they vacation at Walt Disney World. Didn't you pay attention to the story in Mickey's Starland? Anyway, in this segment of the video, I will say that it seems like there was probably a copyright strike or something, because did you notice that the audio seemed off? It sounds like they put in some temporary music, and there are parts where it felt like the characters were supposed to be talking, and they weren't. It was just like some random music.
I didn't notice the music. I think I was so struck by one of the country bears playing beach volleyball that I couldn't focus on anything else after that.
Yeah, so they show them around the resorts. Of course, we got the beaches of the Polynesian and the Grand Floridian and stuff.
I have a question about the beaches, because we see Polynesian. I think the spring break segment was at Caribbean Beach Resort.
Okay.
And then later we see Grand Floridian Beach as well. And all these beaches are packed with people when it cuts to it, which I've never seen in my life at Disney. So do you think, like, Disney gave these guests something to do while they said, hey, everybody hang out here, we're going to get some crowd shots? Like, did they roast a pig? Did they have activities? Or was it just like, you have to stand here for hours while the exciting parade happens way over there?
They got the 3 little pigs to roast a pig for everybody. No, I think, I could be entirely wrong here, but I think that the beach fronts used to be like a huge selling point for those resorts. So I think that they were naturally kind of busy. Obviously, these days, it's highly discouraged because of alligator incidences. But I think back then, like, they used to have a wave machine in that water. Like, it used to be a selling point, is what I'll say. So I think it was, I mean, they might have corralled a few people, but I don't think anybody was being paid to be there or anything.
Okay. I mean, it definitely sold the whole spring break vibe, because that's what I think of. I think of just like masses of people at the beach with beach balls, and everybody's wearing leis and they've got their coolers. And that's kind of what it looked like at these beaches.
Well, the thing that's so interesting about these older specials is, of course, you know, they're giant commercials for the Walt Disney World Resort, but there was, I don't want to say so little to do, but, you know, there wasn't so much to do that you couldn't hit everything in 1 hour-long TV special. So, like, they really make sure you see most of the resorts and most of, you know, you fly over Typhoon Lagoon, even if you don't have a whole segment. In fact, they actually cut to Typhoon Lagoon at one point with a kid going down
because
Humunga
the guy
Cowabunga.
at the top of Humunga Cowabunga has a microphone, and before he goes down, they're like, hand off your microphone.
Exactly.
Don't go down with that, please.
So yeah, so it's kind of cool how they could kind of highlight everything you could do at Walt Disney World, which is I mean, if we're trying to do that today, it would be a 12-hour TV special, right? Like, it'd be crazy.
But I would love to see them at least try. I love how much focus the parks get in these parades. Like you mentioned, even the montage at the beginning. I feel like if we did these parades today, the cutaways would be to Idina Menzel in the recording studio. Here's what it looks like when she voices Elsa, you know, or like, here's a sneak preview of the next Marvel movie that's coming out.
Yeah, fair point, and you're right. And yeah, I love how much time. The thing is like, to me, and I'm sure to you and a lot of Disney fans listening, we don't need to necessarily see the newest stuff. Yes, I love the previews of the new stuff coming, but I'm still cool with going back, and I would be cool with seeing like somebody ride through Pirates of the Caribbean, you know, or just do something classic. I think would be so cool. Yeah. So yeah, I agree. We do cut back to Disney MGM Studios, where at this time, a big thing about Disney MGM Studios, they really wanted to feature the point that this was a real working studio. So we cut to them shooting Adventures in Wonderland, which if you grew up in the 90s, this was a huge deal. Did you grow up with that show? I don't think you did you?
Well, I didn't grow up with Disney Channel, but my co-host Jeremy, it is his single favorite. Yeah, it's a single favorite memory from Disney Channel. He talks about it all the time. He has sent me clips before, so I've definitely gotten the vibe. But this little clip, I mean, it really did show you some cool behind-the-scenes shots of how the makeup is put on the characters. You get to see the man controlling the Cheshire Cat puppet. Like, I went to Mgm Studios the very first time was the year before it became Hollywood Studios, so it was already pretty late in, its history. And it's always been hard for me to picture how this could possibly have worked as a soundstage. But even these little clips during the parade, I was like, oh, I can see it now. I understand.
Yeah, Derek, that makes me sad for you because you really don't know how magical Disney MGM Studios was. And to this day, I still say, even through all the insanity of construction stuff, I always say, is my favorite park at Walt Disney World. And I completely understand why some people would be like, you're insane. It's the least great park at the resort. I get it. But there was something so special about that park during its first decade. It was unbelievable. Or maybe not a decade, but the first 5 years was unbelievable. So, and if you haven't seen it, make sure you check out the grand opening celebration of Disney MGM Studios. Have you ever seen this TV special? I think it was 2 hours.
Yes, I watched it last year for the first time.
Okay, it's fantastic. I mean, there's some fluff in there that's unnecessary, and it probably could have been an hour. But that original park, I can't say enough about it. So yes, we get behind the scenes of Adventures in Wonderland. We cut back to the parade to Alice in Wonderland. That makes sense. Perfect segment. But after that, and I can't wait to talk to you about this, is the Country Bears, who, of course, their new neighbors is Splash Mountain, which they promote there. And I want to talk about the Scarecrows. Because do you remember when we talked about the 1990 parade, there's this whole farm section, and they feature these dancing scarecrows who, in the 1992 parade, are attached to corn husks or corn, what would you call them? Not husks, but the
stalks.
Stalks. There we go. Thank you. So they're attached to the corn stalks, and it's a costume where one of the leg is in a stalk, the other one is in a leg, and then there's kind of a leg that is a dummy leg. And it creates, it allows them to do some interesting looking dance moves. But just 2 years ago in the 1990 parade, it looked very different, didn't it, Derek?
It did, and I think someone, whatever their version of Twitter was in 1990, took to the whatever and said, you guys, those kind of look like Jesuses on crosses. I think we need to change this if we do this segment in the future.
And, I remember you saying that and be like, you know what? Because I remembered them as the corn stalks. And so I didn't really take note of it just because I was kind of living through my memory last time. But yeah, when you can't unsee it, when you pointed it out, I was like, that absolutely looks like Jesus on the cross. And which is, semi-appropriate for Easter, I would say. But
that's why I thought that is what they did, but still not entirely appropriate.
Not in a Disney parade. No. So they got your note and they fixed it.
Yeah.
So
retroactively,
how do you feel about the corn stalks?
It's great. It's great. And I did instantly think of the crosses, but just because I have that memory ingrained in my brain. But yeah, no, I thought this was great. And Scarecrows in the parade are fantastic, especially for this segment.
Yeah, I gotta say, I don't really get the whole farm thing. I get they do have Clara Cluck in her same float that we still see her to this day from Boo to You, which is unbelievable to me. I don't quite get it. I get it, Clara Cluck is laying eggs, I guess, but I don't know, it feels more like autumnal to me when I think of farmland. I don't know. Is this just me?
Yeah, no, you're totally right. I thought two things, I think. First, yeah, chickens are a heavy part of a farm, so that makes me think of Easter because they lay eggs.
Little chickies, yeah.
But also, I thought that they were going to do a segment for each land. So I'm like, oh, this is Frontierland. But they clearly don't. I mean, Tomorrowland doesn't get love. Adventureland doesn't really.
Well, in the past years, they actually had, grown women in little chickie costumes, probably 20 women, singing as chickens to Dolly Parton's 9 to 5. And that was for 5 or so years of the parade. And I'm like, I don't get this. Why are they singing 9 to 5?
Oh.
Yeah, it was a weird choice, but that was a thing for many, many years. So at least that was somebody got that note too. Like, this isn't clear. Whatever you're going for,
Yeah.
Let's get rid of it. So after that, we get an elaborate Snow White float. Like, these are floats I'd never seen before, and this was like, you got the whole forest and a water wheel on the float. Like, these were honestly some of the best floats I've ever seen in a parade.
Yeah, I love this float, and she's like legit holding a real dove that she then kisses and lets loose. I'm like, man, how long has she been holding that thing?
There's a little cage full of doves. She does it because I've seen it in previous years as well. There's a place where she grabs a dove and she releases it. And of course, they made sure she had one in front of the camera as well. They used to release doves during the parade, which is cool. And hopefully they all flew back where they were supposed to.
Yeah, this was a really well done float. And of course, the dwarfs are there too. I did notice, and I think this is a thing, like when you look at yearbooks from the 90s, I always feel this way, that Snow White and Prince Charming looked 45.
They didn't have the college program, I don't think, back then. I don't know if that's true or not. But yes, a lot of the characters were definitely older in the past, I feel like. I don't know if there was like that urgency for young people to work for it. This was kind of a time where Disney wasn't as cool, maybe. It was for little kids still, That
is true. Yeah, they were just having that renaissance.
Yeah. Now we got to talk about this next float, which I bet you never thought existed in a Disney parade. And that is the Jim Henson's Dinosaurs float.
Not only did I not expect this float, but the whole time I was thinking, okay, so the costumes do exist. Where are they now? Why do we not bring those out?
I mean, long lost characters, folks, and the show is now on Disney Plus. I'll tell you what, they need to do a Disney Plus special event and bring out all of the stuff like that's being put on Disney Plus, old and new. That would be a great Disneyland After Dark event for you Imagineers listening right now. Yeah. I would love to see that.
Yeah, I mean, imagine if we don't really get streaming numbers, but imagine if Dinosaurs currently is taking off and exploding on Disney Plus, and they're like, we might have to do something about this.
Maybe it's just the people I follow, but I feel like the Twitterverse was talking quite a bit about Dinosaurs and the Muppet Show. I feel like people were excited about both of them. The cool thing is this float had the entire family. No, the costumes aren't exactly like what we see on the show. Their mouths don't move or anything, so they're not as good as what we see on the show, but pretty darn close. The one thing I'll say is they didn't have Baby, which, I mean, was undeniably the most popular character from that show. They even had the grandmother on the float, but no Baby, which was really sad. Not the mama.
Joan did comment on Dinosaurs, and she says something like, it's become a really big hit. So it's just so funny going back in time and seeing these things that we know are like classics, or our group of friends love that show, but at the time, like it's fun hearing how they're reacting in real time to these shows.
Yeah. Very, very cool. Speaking of hit TV shows, one of the biggest hits on TV was Home Improvement, and Taryn Smith from Home Improvement. Did you like that segue, Derek? That was a good segue.
It was a really good segue. They took one of their most popular shows and pulled out the worst actor from it to be in this special.
And he heads over to Disneyland. Now, this is the first time they head west on this special to get a private tour and a little sneak peek, an unexpected sneak peek of Fantasmic. Now, it wasn't open at this point. It was still under construction. And I've got to say, this is probably why the 1992 Happy Easter Parade is my favorite, because this was my introduction to Fantasmic. This, hands down, was the moment where, being an East Coast boy growing up, I was a Walt Disney World kid. This was my come to Jesus, you need to come to Disneyland moment, because I needed to see this show. And this short little clip that they do, what did you think looking at it? It blew my mind as a kid.
Jeff, that checks out, because I know you love all things spooky, you love the Halloween season, and Fantasmic is a show about villains, essentially. And what I loved about this little sneak peek is it did not hide from that at all. It leaned into just like darkness and lightning and Maleficent and her transforming into a dragon. And I was like, okay, they went there. They're not afraid to say that, little kids might be scared by this.
Yeah, it was awesome. And as we said, Terrence Smith is on a VIP tour with a plaid, and he's like, I really wish I could see Fantasmic. And the plaid is like, well, be careful what you wish for. And then all of a sudden she turns into Maleficent, which is awesome. Go ahead.
My favorite line is she says, be careful wishes come true here at Disneyland. And he crosses his arms and goes, I didn't come here to be careful.
And doesn't he do the whole Home Alone face smack a few times in this?
Yeah, when the guy transforms into Maleficent, it's like
Yeah, the Home Alone thing was really popular back then. And then it's interesting because the show hadn't opened at this point, so we're not really seeing Fantasmic, but we're seeing Disneyland lit and fogged up and the kids running through the park, and they make it feel like Fantasmic. Knowing the show now, it has the same energy. This is the first time we hear the music of Fantasmic. I think this is the first time the public is hearing that iconic score. This segment alone is worth watching this special. I can't rave about this enough. And I remember having it on VHS, taping it off of TV, and watching it over and over and over and over again. Obsessed with it.
This is all making a lot of sense just because I know how much you love Fantasmic, the OG Fantasmic.
Original. Thank you for saying that. Yes.
Yes. I did think it was interesting that she transports him to Tom Sawyer Island, where he immediately just takes control of the switchboard and is able to turn on all the effects on his own. And I'm like, should we be encouraging guests to do this? But the scene under the castle was very, very cool when he was running from her, and the whole archway, the breezeway under the castle is filled with fog, and she's chasing him, and there's a greenish glow. Very cool.
Now, I will say that this clip kind of set me up for disappointment a little bit, because in this, we see the Maleficent fire-breathing dragon, and it is, let's just say, more beautiful and grandiose than what we even have today at Disneyland. Mm-hmm. We're not, of course, Walt Disney World still has the cherry picker kind of pole dragon, which is what we had when Fantasmic opened. So the first time I saw it, I was like, this is not the dragon that I've seen in promotional materials. And to this day, I still don't know what that dragon is. Was that a puppet that they just made look life-size? Was it not the coolest looking fire-breathing dragon ever? It was awesome.
It was, and honestly, I didn't even put together that it's not quite what we see in the show. I thought maybe that had to do with camera angles, but interesting.
No, it's not at all what we saw in the show. So I do remember seeing that and being disappointed. To be honest, it was mostly reminiscent of what they used to have in Tokyo for their Fantasmic, where the head with the neck would come up out. I don't know. It's very interesting. Folks, watch it and let me know what you think. I should really look into how they did it, because they weren't going to build a giant robotic just for this commercial. So my guess is it's a miniature or puppet of sorts that got edited. I love this preview.
Well, this goes back to what I was saying about it's so funny hearing them talk about things in real time that to us are 30 years old, because even as they're introducing this segment and Regis says something like, I love saying this word, Fantasmic, which is just a part of our vocabulary now. And it's funny hearing them talk about there are lasers and water mist screens, and he acts out his hands like it's water falling from the sky. And I'm like, when you say it like that, it does sound as cool as it is.
Yeah. It's pretty awesome. Oh, I love it so much. But speaking of old things that are new back in 1992, we have a cool Beauty and the Beast segment of the parade. But what it really is it's the performers from Beauty and the Beast live on stage over at Disney Mgm Studios. And, Regis here actually says it's really the greatest musical to come along in years. And this was before it was a Broadway musical. So, Reg knew his stuff when it comes to that, I guess.
Yeah, it is, though. It was nominated for Best Picture. Everybody at that time knew how good this movie was.
Yeah, Joan mentions the first animated movie ever to be nominated for Best Picture Oscar. And yeah, it's pretty incredible. It is a nice segment in the parade. Of course, we have the oversized Mrs. Potts and the gang, which is always a little weird. But it's cool because Robbie Benson's part of it. He starts out dancing with Belle, and then, Beast cuts in and stuff. But I was actually, as I was watching, this is actually kind of beautiful. And it was a huge hit at that moment in time. But yeah, Beauty and the Beast live on stage was new in 1992, and it's quote unquote still running.
Yeah, and when you mentioned those oversized characters, it is kind of embarrassing that those characters are still the characters we have today, but what are you going to do?
It's crazy. But then we get a Disney afternoon float, which, why doesn't this exist anymore? We have, of course, that Disney afternoon theme song, which is incredible. Step right up and come on in. Here's where the fun begins.
You and Joan both were singing along.
Love it. There's so much to do. Getting ready just for you. Anyway, we got Tailspin. We got Darkwing Duck. We got Rescue Rangers. We got DuckTales. But here's my favorite part of this segment. Joan loves to describe, she does it every year, how you can tell the difference between Chip and Dale. And she goes, Chip has a chocolate chip nose, Dale has a red nose and 2 teeth. And then Regis, do you know what I'm going to say?
I miss this.
Regis goes, yeah, and one of them has a hat. Because they were dressed as the Rescue Rangers, so one of them's wearing a hat. And Joan's like, well, when they're not wearing their hats. I was just like, you're killing me. This is amazing. No. Oh, I died.
I really did watch this special, and I paused it so many times because I wanted to make sure I didn't catch a single thing, but I guess I wasn't paying attention to the right things.
You need to go back and watch it again. It is...
I'm kind of tempted to.
It's so much goodness. Then we got the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which, of course, at that point were appearing every single day or performing every single day at Disney Mgm Studios. Loved that show as a kid. Such a unique costume for the Turtles, though, in this parade. Like, these are costumes. They didn't look like the movies. They were really like their own unique thing in Ninja Turtle fandom. Like, in the world of Ninja Turtle fandom, I wonder how those folks feel about these costumes, because they are very Disneyfied, I will say, but I love them.
I actually noticed that too, and I like that they were in the van with April. I thought that was a nice touch, but I also thought they were surrounded by performers in like black ninja garb, and a lot of them were kids. And I thought I would have loved to be one of those kids, just dressed up as a ninja and just gets to do fake karate ninja moves the whole way down the street.
Yeah, they definitely had a karate school group of people come in and be part of the parade. Once again, bringing in the local organizations. Very, very cool. And I love it. And then we cut to a segment celebrating what had just opened, EuroDisneyland. Of course, these days we know it more as the Disneyland Paris resort. But we had this awesome grand opening montage. Michael Eisner was there, George Lucas, Roy E. Disney, and a whole slew of other folks. And this is the first look I saw of EuroDisney back in the day. And even then I remember being like, wow, that park is beautiful. And that's what everybody was saying. This is beautiful. It's great. It's super. And it was kind of fun to look back at that, especially since it's not called that anymore.
Yeah, I actually found this segment to be kind of awkward just because of what we know now, where you see Michael Eisner and Roy E. Disney both in this clip. And of course, they had their differences later on. And then the park itself performed really poorly those first few years and almost didn't survive. So the whole time I'm like, oh, this poor park.
But even when you think about that and know all of that, to me, Disneyland Paris from day one has always been the most beautiful Disney park that I visited, at least. It's stunningly gorgeous. And yes, it didn't do well, but it doesn't take anything away from the fact that it was stunningly gorgeous and hella expensive to build. Like,
yeah, sure.
Huge budget. And then they went and built Disney California Adventure soon after that. So,
yeah. For pennies.
But yeah, that was fun to watch. Then we cut back. We got Cinderella in the parade. And of course, Regis actually goes, Cinderella, you make me out of control. And a kiss back to you, my darling. And I was like, oh gosh. Regis's wife, what was she thinking when she was watching this? May he rest in peace, I will say.
Of course.
But, his comments are unbelievable. He came back a bunch of years after, too. They didn't let him go.
I mean, I've already seen him get promoted from the street to the host chair. So.
It's true. He did a lot of fun segments in the former years where like he'd hop around to Epcot and always be showing the newest things. So I guess it was a promotion sitting next to Joan Lunden, but at the same time, he did a lot of fun stuff in the past years. So it was cool. Then we get a parade finale with Mickey and Minnie, of course, but we've got to talk about, once again, cutting back to Disney Mgm Studios, the newest park, and once again, focusing on the fact that actual production happened there where they shot this, what I think is awesome. I'm curious what you think. This Happy Easter Parade, essentially music video, where it's a lot of the performers that were in the parade in their Sunday best, singing the classic Easter Parade song on the streets of America. I mean, this is Easter to me. I love it.
I love this because not only did you have the actors on the streets of America, but there were old-timey cars passing in the background and blowing their the horns. And once again, I finally got a sense of, oh, this is how the park operated as a studio back in the day. This makes sense to me now.
Yeah, I think it gives you all those Sunday best feels. I mean, it's such a great song as well. Just that Easter Parade song is such a beautiful song. I love it. I love this music video, but whenever they did these, and they did them for quite a few years as the parades went on, it was always Disney Mgm Studios presents, once again, hammering over the head. We're a real working production studio here, and it was great while it lasted, and it was a really, really special thing. I loved it so much. And that was essentially the end. We got our goodbyes, and of course, Robbie Benson one more time had to show us a picture of his baby when he said goodbye, and that was the parade for 1992.
You should reach out to Zephyr Benson and see if he will come on your show.
I should have done this episode, nothing against you, but I should have done this episode with Zephyr Benson.
Oh my gosh, you absolutely should have. He's 29 years old now, right? I think I did that math right.
Yeah. It's too funny. It's crazy. But what did you think overall? I mean, I kind of made you watch a second one of these. You graciously accepted, but I don't think you would have gone and done this on your own. Last year, I said, you should really go back and watch more of these. You should really go back and watch more of these.
I know, but I wait for you to tell me which ones are worth watching. And you were right. This one was most certainly worth watching. I had such a good time. It took me like 2 hours to watch the 1 hour special because I couldn't help but pause and rewind and look at the details.
Well, listen, you got to go back and watch again because you missed some epic Regis Philbin lines.
You know the one thing that surprised me, though, as it wrapped up and I realized that that's the end of the parade, Epcot really didn't get any love whatsoever, and this was its 10-year anniversary.
Oh my gosh, I hadn't even thought about that. It was the 10-year anniversary. I mean, it was still months away, but it was the right year. In fact, they kept saying they did say several times, and this may be why they didn't mention Epcot, but like it's the 20th anniversary of Walt Disney World. Even though it would have been October of 81. This was, March or April of 91. This was March or April of 92. So they were still in that universe of the 20th anniversary. Maybe that's why.
Yeah. Do you remember, though, that like Walt Disney World got a lot of new things for the 20th anniversary, and Epcot got that new show, Surprise in the Skies? Do you remember this at all? The daytime aerial show?
I've heard of this. I'm not super familiar with it, and I don't know what was special for the 10th and 20th. Yeah.
Okay, well, it debuted for the 20th, so I thought maybe you would get like a shot. Because I know at the end of this show, there were giant 45-foot inflatable balloons of characters that one from each World Showcase Pavilion rose up.
Yeah, I've seen that. That's how they opened Islands of Adventure.
Oh, no way. I didn't know that.
Yeah, they had giant inflatable characters from each island in Islands of Adventure. And cool. That's how they opened that park in 1999. So that's actually kind of funny.
Yeah. Anyway, not even the overhead shot of those. I just thought, yeah, poor Epcot.
Well, they only had their 45 minutes plus commercials. True. So they should have gone 2 hours and 92. But in any case, it's one of my favorites. But Derek, let's get to some trivia.
Do you know the answer? Get your brain gears churning and play along. It's trivia time.
Alrighty, Derek, do you want to hit me with some trivia first, or shall I hit you?
I'll go first. So you mentioned that they said we're celebrating the 20th anniversary because, as we know, Disney likes to spread out its anniversaries over 18 months. Like I remember Mickey and Minnie's birthday was in November, and all the stuff started the next January. Yeah. Like, okay. That's fine. Birthday week, birthday year. My question is kind of related to what I just said about Epcot. What special attraction debuted at the Magic Kingdom on October 1st, 1991 as part of the park's 20th anniversary celebration?
Oh, wow. Well, it wasn't Splash Mountain.
I can tell you also that it would leave us forever in 2010.
Oh, wow. Leave us forever. Give me a land. I know that that's really cheating, but give me a land.
It's actually not A traditional attraction that you would wait in a line for.
Was it a fight? Oh, was it Wishes?
No, but you're on the right track.
The parade, whatever the parade was.
It's a fan favorite. It replaced Main Street Electrical Parade.
Oh, Spectro Magic?
Yeah.
Oh, why was that not part of this parade?
Right.
Oh,
I know. Yeah, so it debuted, I didn't know that. It debuted on the 20th anniversary. Like, every park got something, so Epcot got Surprise in the Skies, and Magic Kingdom got Spectro Magic.
Ba-da-bum, bum, ba-dum, ba-dum, bum, bum, ba-da-bum, bum, 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 ba-da. Love it.
Also, in my research, I didn't know this, that in press releases leading up to that October, their parade was referred to as Electro Magic, and then they changed it just before opening.
Huh, I hadn't heard that either. That's that was. I should do an entire episode about Spectro Magic. I love that parade so much. I was lucky enough to see it several times in person, and I mean, honestly, I know this is saying a lot. I would take Spectro Magic over Paint the Night. Like Paint the Night, the technology is definitely better, but that parade was something special. I would love to see a Spectro Magic 2.0 with Paint the Night technology. That's what I want. Boom, done. Imagineers listening, take that and run with it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, that waltz. Like, you cannot beat that sweeping
John
waltz.
Debney, man. John Debney. Unbelievable stuff.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, my word. I don't know how I did not know that.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, because I talked with him about it when I interviewed him on the show. Yeah.
Can you imagine Chernobog with Paint the Night technology?
So good. So good. Anyway, I got a trivia question for you. In this parade, we saw the Lake Gibson High School Marching Band play 76 trombones from The Music Man. What significance does this song have with the Disneyland Resort, or more specifically, Disneyland Park?
This musical or this song?
Song, musical, whichever you want. And it's not like, the Dapper Dans sing Light a Rose or anything. This is like, there's like a very special event that you're not going to know, but it's a really fun story, so I wanted to share it.
Well, I'm excited to learn, but yeah, no, I'm sorry to say I don't know this.
Okay, so do you know the name of the man who wrote the music for The Music Man?
No, and I've never seen The Music Man.
Have you seen the movie?
No.
Okay, first musical I ever saw. The first musical I have any memory of seeing on stage, it was a community theater production, but to me, it could have just been Broadway because it was like life-changing. I love The Music Man, and it's not typically in the realm of musicals I love. But I love The Music Man. I actually want to watch it with you sometime. So
yeah, I would love that. And I don't want people to think I'm not a musical theater fan because I very much am. That's just for some reason been a blind
It's an
spot
older
for
musical.
me.
I get it. It's not one I would typically see either. It just happened to be part of my childhood. It's great. And of course, a lot of the music we hear on Main Street USA. But in any case, the name of the man who wrote the music for it is Meredith Willson. And on June 14th, 1959, this was Disneyland's first major expansion, introducing the e-ticket and opening new attractions like the monorail, Matterhorn, submarine voyage, etc. And it was televised once again with a host, Art Linkletter, who was the opening day host as well. Vice President Nixon was there, and so was Meredith Willson, the composer of The Music Man, and Walt had a surprise for Meredith Willson during the parade festivities. Now, you're watching the parade, they get to the finale, and Art Linkletter says, "What do I see down there? Meredith Willson, would you come up here for a minute? Mr. Willson," then came to the front of the music stand, and Art continued. He goes, "I want to hear from an expert. You're Mr. Music Man. What do you see coming up the street?" And to Mr. Wilson's apparent amazement, what he saw was an all-brass band, including 76 trombones, marching down Main Street, USA, playing his signature song from The Music Man. 76 trombones, Mr. Wilson could be overheard saying, "I've been saying it all afternoon, but Walt Disney, when he does anything, he does it right, doesn't he? Listen to that." And this incredible band approached the stand. Art led Meredith Willson to a small platform in the middle of the street, telling him, "Come on up here, Meredith." The drum major handed his hat and baton to Mr. Willson, who then conducted the band to the finale of the song as the crowd roared from one end of Main Street to the other. It is such a cool moment. You can see this because it was a television special. It's available on YouTube. I will include it in the show notes of this episode at DisneyCoastToCoast.com. And it was just such a beautiful moment because it didn't feel like today's things where it would be like produced and they'd be like, act surprised, but this is going to happen. But it was like this genuine surprise that Walt had for Meredith Willson, which, by the way, The Music Man was still only a couple years old. It was still running on Broadway in the original run. And I don't know. It was just such a great moment. I love it so much.
That's really special. And hey, Walt Disney was a musical theater fan. Yes. Love to hear that.
Absolutely. I think he was definitely a theater fan. So yeah, I think it's such a great moment. If you're a musical theater nerd like myself, I'm sure you got a kick out of that. Since Derek hates the Music Man, he didn't really care about that little fact.
Not true. Just like you saved eating a Matterhorn macaroon until I was with you, I'm saving watching the Music Man until I'm with you.
Honestly, I hope there's a circumstance, although the movie is great and I would be thrilled to watch that with you, I hope there's a circumstance where there's a really good theatrical production somewhere when we're together. And
we were supposed to get one this year, right? With Hugh Jackman.
Yeah, I actually had plans to go see it because I'm not the hugest Hugh Jackman fan, but I was he's perfectly cast in that role. And it was the same producers who did Hello, Dolly with Bette Midler. And I was very impressed by that production. They know what they're doing with these old classics. And yeah, they're definitely appealing to the older people on Broadway audience, but I was very excited to see what they were doing with the Music Man. So
much to get caught up on.
Anyway, Derek, thank you so much for coming on to talk about the 1992 Walt Disney World Happy Easter Parade. Why don't you let folks know where they can find you and all your shenanigans?
Sure. So you can follow me on Instagram, Derek N. Lewis, or on Twitter, Derek Lou. But of course, I'm mostly here because I am the co-host of another podcast called The Mad Chatters. We release a new episode every other week, and we just have wacky fun playing games and talking about history and getting crazy, talking about the parks. So you can go check us out over there if you would like. And our friend Jeff here is often a guest.
Alrighty. Well, happy Easter, Derek.
Happy Easter and happy spring to you, my friend.
I hope you all enjoyed today's conversation. On the last couple of episodes, we talked about the reopening announcement for Disneyland Park, the opening for Ratatouille and Epcot, and more Disney news. Plus, I did an episode all about the Disney-owned properties that you can find in Universal Studios theme parks. Here's what listener Sam had to say about that episode.
How's it going? This is Sam Carter, a.k.a. Cartar Sauce, calling, and I just had to leave a note about the last show that I listened to, diving deep into the licenses of Universal and Disney, and oh my God, probably just when you think you know it all, and you kind of think you do, I learned so much for that show. So I really just wanted to thank you for that deep dive. It was very cool. Of course, us nerds are gonna have tons of questions about the Marvel and the parks and whatnot, and it just goes so much deeper than that. So anyway, thank you very much. Love the show, and keep doing what you're doing. Thank you. Bye.
On upcoming episodes, we'll chat more about current Disney news, including this big proposed Disneyland Resort expansion. And following that, I have a chat with Kevin Rafferty, an Imagineer behind attractions like Toy Story Midway Mania, Cars Land, the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror, and more. He's retiring from Imagineering after over 40 years with the company. That conversation was an absolute delight, and I can't wait for you to hear it. In fact, my plan is to have it available a week in advance to members of the DCTC community over on Patreon in tiers 2 and above. You can find a link to join and get that episode early if you'd like in this episode's description. The easiest way to make sure you don't miss any of the magic is by subscribing to Disney Coast to Coast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Wherever you search, don't forget, it's Disney with a Z, Coast to Coast. You can find any links mentioned in this episode, along with ways to connect with today's guest co-host by checking out the show notes at DisneyCoastToCoast.com, or you can find a link to the show notes in this episode's description. And don't forget to leave a voicemail at 818-860-2569 to share your thoughts on today's conversation and the chance to be heard on a future episode. Once again, that's 818-860-2569, or find the number in this episode's description, along with the link for some free gifts from me to you. Other than that, folks, have a magical day. Bye!
Thanks for listening to Disney Coast to Coast. Have a magical day.
Disney Coast to Coast is produced and hosted by Jeff DePauli. Learn more about the podcast and become a supporter at DisneyCoastToCoast.com. This podcast is part of the DePodcast Network. Learn more about this show, plus find more quality and entertaining podcasts at DePodcastNetwork.com. That's DEPodcastNetwork.com.